All right, so this is going to be the first half of the session for the first 45 minutes. We're going to be talking about Forex. So, of course, we're going to first check the news. So it's daylight savings time. We know we just looking for yellow folders or no folders at all for the pairs that we typically trade. So we're going to do a quick glance at Forex Factory. If you are a swing trader, which means that you're going to take a trade today and you may potentially hold that trade for days, right? You're going to want to check the news for the rest of the week as well. So if you trade GBP pairs, you want to be mindful that you may want to take profit around this time. If you're in a trade, then on Tuesday, we got some news with the USD JPY. So we're going to try to find some short market moves. Nothing that's too long, just so we don't run into this. But yeah, we're going to go to tradingview.com. And of course, we're going to analyze Euro USD. So even though last week was NFP week, we did do pretty good. So today's lesson, I'm going to show you guys how to pretty much upgrade your TradingView experience. So just a few features and things that you can use to make TradingView more appealing or more fun to you. This can also give you more insight into your chart as well. We're also going to look at some trade ideas for Euro USD and see what GBP JPY has, if anything. So, all right. So firstly, when you first log into your chart, you'll typically see your candles and you'll see it may be one or two time frames up here, depending on if you've personalized your chart or not. Now, it's really cool to personalize your chart because the quicker you can get your strategy down, like if you watch a lot of trading videos, like traditional trading videos, they'll talk about having an edge, right? And your edge is just, what is your trading style, right? What is your trading psychology, right? Do you know your limitations, right? And your restrictions within trading? Like, do you have a customized chart? What makes it easy for you to trade? Because we don't all trade the same way. So I'm a scalper, right? I'm a scalper and I'm also an intraday trader. So for scalping, the time frames that I like to use are 1 hour, 15-minute, and 5-minute. So what you can do to, because you may use higher time frames, right? You may trade on the daily, the weekly, and then the 5-minute. If you click this arrow right here, you can click the star to the right of the time frames that you like, and this will add it to your favorite pair. So let's just say I take these off. You're gonna see sorry y'all. You're gonna see that it disappears from my panel, but I'm just gonna add it back. So these are the time frames that I typically check when I drop trades into the chat. So it's easier for me to have them all right there. Let me delete this stuff. So it could be a naked chart. Right. Second thing, keep the candles the same. The indicators that we've been using are the double EMA and also the momentum indicator. And just a quick review, but we should all know how to use this strategy right now. But guess in case you're still practicing or you haven't quite found, I don't know, you just have to build your confidence with a certain strategy. I'm just going to show you guys how it works again. Or you can select whatever indicators you like. But for this one, you want your candles to be under both of the EMAs. Then you also want your momentum to be below the zero line, letting you know that the market is going to continue to drop. So in this example, we can see we had a really nice drop right there. So that's one way to use it for a sell. And a second way for a buy, you would want to see the candles crossing above both of the EMAs, preferably some rejections at the bottom. And you want to see your momentum line is crossing up or above zero, right? So if you guys have ever like used this strategy or you've been using this strategy to make money, just drop some sevens in the chat. Or if you have another strategy, just drop some indicators that you typically use. Because you guys should know if you're actively using Tradingview, once you put your indicators on the chart, they're pretty much going to stay there until you take them off. So drop some other indicators that you guys use to customize your charts. Okay, the MOM on NT4. Okay. So has it just added to your strategy, or do you find it just gives you more confidence with trading? Because that's a strong indicator to me. Like seeing these two together, they really be winners for me. Like, okay, 2 EMA and the MOM. Okay. All right. Something I did because I couldn't see the dotted line either was I pretty much took a horizontal line and I placed it down there on the MOM and I placed it at 100. So if you scroll back on the chart, sometimes you can see it, but then you can also just pretty much use it as the RSI or the stochastic. Like if it's facing up, you take it. If it's facing down, but I did add a line to mine and I can see it sometimes. So I just set it at 100, and then you have to also go into the settings and change it to all time frames instead of just the time frame you're looking at it on. So another thing I told you guys before that you can use that'll help you with your trade ideas are session breaks. You're welcome. Session breaks are really helpful, especially when you're looking for your entry and exit points. So I'm just going to go back to the past a little bit just so we can see, because the session breaks are literally the breaks between the different sessions, right? So we have what time is it? It's 6 o'clock. So right now we're in the Sydney session, right? It starts from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m., right? Then the Tokyo session is from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. Then the London session is from 3 a.m. to noon. And then the New York session is from 8 to 4, right? So these session breaks just represent those different session times. So if you're using them for your entry and exit points, what you can do is literally set your support and resistance lines where you see the highest point for a session, right? So for these two sessions, we can see that the highest point was here and here, right? And we can see that the lowest point for this session was here, and the lowest point for this session was here. Oh, wait, no. The lowest point for this session was actually down here, right? So let's just say that we were in this current session between these two lines. We know that within this session, they're going to try to break the high of the previous session, but this last high is pretty high. Or if the market is still trending down, this session is going to try to break the low of the previous session, right? And we can see that that's exactly what happened. Within this session, it wasn't able to break the high because it was pretty high and the market was trending down, but it was able to break the low, which was here. So let me take some of these drawings off. So that makes sense. Drop some sevens in the chat. Right? Because I'm going to show you another example of how to use it for a buy as well. Okay? It makes sense? Okay. So let's just say we're in this current session right now, right? Because this is the session that we're going to be analyzing for our trade. So we can see that we have, sorry, I need to put my annotation away. Okay, so we can see that the high for the previous sessions was here. Well, you actually want to go by this session because, again, since the market, and this is actually a great example, since the market started trending back up from breaking that lowest low, and we can see it's creating a high and a higher high and a higher high. So since we can see that the market is on the uptrend, we should know that we could have set our TP exactly here because if we look in the past, it broke the previous two highs, right? Now that it's back on the uptrend, it broke the previous two highs. So you would have wanted to set your TP for a buy either at the previous high or about 5 pips, 5 to 10 pips above it, right? Because the market is always going to, it's like whenever the market is going off of a liquidity move, the only goal is to go clean up the liquidity that it didn't get last time. So we can see in the case of this buy, it had to break these previous highs because there was all this liquidity here and they just came and cleaned it up. So let's just say somebody got into this trade for a long time ago, but instead of the market buying, it actually sold, right? They could have still been profitable off of this trade if they would have just waited for the market to pretty much turn back around. So let's look at what's happening in the current session. We got to remember, because our classes are earlier too, the market is just opening back up at 5. So at 6 o'clock is really not a lot of things happening. So the trade ideas will probably be dropped in the chat a little later instead of on the call. Because the market just opened. It's only been one candle, but we do see this huge gap right here. So that has to be filled in. So we can see that the previous high was already broken. So now we want to move this line up to where the current high is, right? And we just want to take an assessment and ask ourselves the questions to see, would you get into this trade for a buy or for a sell, right? Just looking at this setup and what's happening now, would you guys get in for a buy or for a sell? I want to know. A buy. Okay. A buy. Let's see. Okay. Why would you get in for a buy? Okay. Spicy says she think it may continue to sell because of the wick. And Raquel, you think it will buy because there was a strong green candle or because it's in the uptrend? I would say that it's probably is going to sell only because once the previous, remember, the market is always going to be doing this up down thing. Once the previous high has already been broken and you have other confirmations for a sell, like for example, the MOM line is still below 0, right? It could break up, or it could, sometimes it'll just coast this line and it'll go sideways and then it'll make a sharp turn back down. So since it's currently still below, we can say that, okay, it could potentially sell because the previous high has been broken. And now we can see this gap in the market right here. It has to be filled, right? It already broke the high of the previous session. So now we have to be mindful that the goal is going to be to break the low of the previous session. The high's already been broken with the second candle, right? That probably was unexpected. People probably were like, okay, it's going to go back up, but it already did what it had to do. It came through. It took out everybody whose stop loss was right there. And now it can proceed to sell to maybe around this area. Does that make sense, y'all? Okay. All right, you said it makes sense. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's like you always have to keep the liquidity aspect in mind. So that's why when I'm like literally how I'm analyzing the charts is how I'm telling you guys to do it now. So sometimes when you come to class, you'll see the session breaks are on, and sometimes they're off because I know it can be a little bit distracting. But for when the market is switching sessions, like let's just say you're going to be up at 3 a.m. So you want to be up when the market switches that session, because depending on whether the market is trending up or whether the market is trending down, you can see which point is trying to break. Is it trying to break a previous high, or is it trying to break a previous low? Right? So we can turn the session breaks back on, because you'll see that it makes sense. So you could get in this trade for a sell. And I know you probably have seen this on your chart sometimes before too, where you'll see it's a huge gap, right? It's a huge gap from where the market closed and where the market opened. So anybody who was in this trade holding from Friday, they would have instantly been in profit as soon as the market took off, right? Because based on, and then look at this, based on what was happening at the previous session close, we had a green candle, right? We had equal bottom, right? Which means that it was going to take off. And this line looked like it was going to push up. So people who got in on Friday, they were getting in expecting the market to buy. So the market went up, right? Now, some people are going to stay in that trade because they think the market is going to keep pushing up, but it's not, because the market has already broken the previous high at the start of the new session. So now it can proceed to sell, right? So you can get in for a buy, but not up here. Like a lot of people who got in up here is about to shoot back down, come back to this zone before it goes back up, right? If that makes sense, y'all, drop some sevens in the chat. And this is just still on session breaks and highs and lows, right? This is what I'm looking at when I drop the trade ideas. I'm like, all right, where is it? Like, so you guys do want to get into Euro USD for a sell, right? I will look at it on the hour, because that's the big time frame, right? Sometimes I even start on the weekly. I'm not even going to front, but let me show y'all why, right? Because this is just, it's like the more you know. So let's just say we're looking at Euro USD on the weekly. So I'll do a rectangle. And again, I got to use the colors of the rainbow to remember. So my weekly will be red. I'll do my resistance in a shaded box. And I'll do my support in a box that's not shaded. But they both have to be red though. And then we can have another support right here. And this is just going to give us further confirmation for this trade idea. And it still has to sell, because look at that. But that's on the weekly. Let me go to the 4 hour. Okay. And look, we can see that on a 4 hour chart, the market may climb up a little bit more, but it's getting into the resistance zone of the weekly. Like if you in a weekly resistance zone, that's crazy. Like you're definitely going to sell, right? But let me go and I'm going to do my resistance on a 4 hour. And I got to make this orange. I really be doing all this, y'all. But I don't be wanting to send all these images in the chat because it'd be too much. But it's nice when you can see it. Like if you can see what I'm saying, right? Just drop a 7 in the chat, so I know I'm not crazy, right? You want to make sure like your entries overlap on multiple time zones. So even still, it's getting close to the resistance for the week, but it's in the resistance of the 4 hour. So let's see on the hour. Look, do y'all see how this is going to be a sell? If it make more sense, right? Drop a MS in the chat, right? It's already in the 4 hour zone. It's getting close to the weekly resistance. So now we got to look. It's definitely going to keep selling all the way down to here. Here, really. Yes, I will do it again. All right. So pretty much if we're taking our trades on a 15-minute time frame, the market could do anything at any time. So we want to confirm our entries on the higher time frame before we take our entries on the lower time frame. So I said, sometimes I'll start with the weekly, right? And you can do all your boxes the same color, right? You can do resistance. This could be black. I just color coded so I can remember what time frame it is, but let's just make it all black just to not be confused. So I put a box right there because that's my resistance on the weekly, right? Because we have some liquidity there. And I'm going to put a box down here. And that's going to be my support for the weekly. Oh, actually, let me do this. Let me turn it red. And let me turn this blue. No, it's going to get confusing. I'll just keep it black. So I set up my support and resistance on the weekly. And then I'll do the same thing on the 4-hour. I'm going to zoom out as much as I can, right? And I'm going to set up support and resistance on the 4-hour. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing on the 1-hour. But if you look at the 1-hour, you can already see that the 1-hour already overlaps with this time frame. So that's even more confirmation that it's going to sell because it's near a resistance. And then, of course, you can just zoom out and see. And do you see how that's a big area of resistance? Like you can see how we're looking at it over the course of a lot of hours now. So we can see that it's resisted here for these hours, for these hours, for these hours, for these hours. And we can see that whenever it pushes into this specific resistance zone on the 4-hour, you see how much it sells. Like, look at all these pips. Right? Do you see that? So we can expect when it pushes back up into this zone, it's going to come back down. Right? So we can even see how many pips this has been. If we would have just, okay, it makes sense. Okay. So we can look and we can see from here. In 5 days, that's 115 pips. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Right? And this is looking at the data over a larger period of time than just the 15-minute. We're still in the hour time frame. But let's say if we go back to the 15-minute time frame and reset chart, we can see it's still in the big resistance zone from the 4-hour. So we know it's going to at least sell to the minimum. We know it's going to sell to the 15-minute support right there or the 15-minute support right there. And because we have our session breaks on, and this is how I would set the TP, what is the low of the session? Like we see that that's one area of resistance, and then that's a second area of resistance. So TP1 would be about, well, I probably would do it a little higher just to do like 20 pips to make it safe. And 20 pips is up here. And we can clearly see it's going to break past there. We just clear, like, it's going to break past there. So your first TP can be 50 pips, literally from 86 to 36. Or even if you're getting down here and you set a sell stop, because remember, a sell stop would mean like the market is up here. Your sell stop entry is here. So I'm going to put sell stop entry is here. It means the market is dropping. Once it hits your sell stop and it keeps dropping, your TP will still be down here. Because the sell stop is already in motion and it triggers going down instead of a sell limit, which I would say wait until it comes back up to here. So you get a better entry point, and then your TP1 is here, and then your TP2 is here. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Okay, cool. All right, y'all. So yeah, as y'all can see, Euro USD is gonna drop. And if you want to get into this trade, you definitely can. And you can have the confidence to get into this trade because we have resistance on a 4 hour. Like I didn't even add a resistance to the 15-minute, but even if I did add a resistance to the 15-minute, it would be here, right? So when I say, and I drop in the chat and I say market execution, that means you can get into this trade right now because we know it's going to sell to at least here if you want your first TP to be there. And it's going to go there because it has to wipe out all these people with a stop loss right there. Like that's the whole purpose it's on right now. It did it up here. Now we got to do it back down, right? So you can feel confident to take that sell. If I said sell limit, I would say, yeah, the market right here, but wait until it come back here to get in for that sell and set your TP there. And that's our first area of support, TP1. And then set TP2 down there, right? So I'll give you guys, I just got to write it down so I could drop it in the chat anyway. So this is Euro USD. I would say sell limit only because it's like you do have to be a little patient with the sell limit. It may go back up to that point, which will give you a better entry, but you also hopefully can look at this with confidence and say it's going to go back down. Like it's going to go back down. So, well, that's what I'm looking at, but I could be wrong, and the market could do a bouncy bounce and go up. Like it really could do that. But based on what we're looking at, it looks like it's going to sell. So it will be sell limit at, I'm going to put halfway to this candle. 1.06 900. And then you guys can set your TPs and your stop loss accordingly. But it looks like the previous high was about, I'm going to just put previous high, but you can adjust your stop loss accordingly. It was about 1.07. That's a tight stop loss, but it's just the previous high. You can adjust it if you like. And then your TPs can be whatever you want them to be. I would say you can set your TP anywhere from 20 to 100. Depending on how long you want to stay in this trade, you can set your TPs anywhere from 20 to 100. Like, so. But all right, guys, that's gonna I'll look at GJ real quick and we'll do the same. It's called top-down analysis, right? If you look at it over bigger time frames, like we're gonna do a top-down analysis on GJ as well. And we can start, you can start as big as you want. Obviously, the more data you have, the better your entry is gonna be. So we can start at the week and we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna say resistance for the week. And then we're gonna put a line for the highest high. That's just extra, but it helps me when I'm looking for trade ideas. You can put support. No, that's kind of choppy. We're gonna move it down here. Okay, so we got our support and resistance on the weekly. We want to look at it in the 4-hour. Sometimes you gotta make it smaller to really see, like, how does this compare? Let me turn this red. Okay, GJ. Let's find some resistance and support. I see here. I see here. Yeah. Okay, then you can tap in and see. So based on what y'all see, is it looking like GJ is going for a buy or a sell? Would you say buy or sell? And after this example, we're going to transition to HFX. Buy. Okay. What do you think, Raquel? Let me go to 15-minute. Yeah, I would definitely say buy as well. It's like if you wanted to catch a short sell from the wick down to here, because as we can see, and this is another great example, as we can see, the session just started, right? The session just started here. But what happened? The market had to break the previous low, right? It broke the previous low. So now it's like it don't really have no business down here unless it's going to keep creating lower lows and lower lows. But based on our bigger time frame, it looks like this is a previous support zone. So I would say set a sell limit below the lowest low, just a little bit. But this candle is pretty flat, right? And the body of the candle is really telling us like the momentum. But if it has no wick, that's basically no resistance. So it's telling you the price is willing, they were willing to open the price right there. So when it goes up, they're going to continue to open the price higher and higher. Yeah, that definitely usually happens when the session's open. That's why some people they specifically only trade the open because it's always going to be some type of dramatic move at the beginning of a session. And this is any session throughout the day. It's always going to be some dramatic move. Like, and yeah. And I could just zoom out so you can see some examples of that. But it's always going to be a dramatic move. Like, look here, this session, it ended up here, right? So people probably wanted to continue to get in. But then this session, immediately at the beginning of the session, it took out the previous high, right? It took out the previous high. And even though it was creating new higher highs, after it did its liquidity thing, it had no reason to continue selling, right? So it did it for a little bit, it confused people, and then it continued to go up, right? The beginning of the session is where the dramatic moves happen. Just to change the direction. So yeah. And look, as we said, GJ is buying. It's literally buying. Like you probably would have been like, oh, it may sell because it's under the 2 EMAs and da da da. But if you look at it on a higher time frame, you see it did what it had to do. It took out the session lows. So now, because it's also in this weekly and 4-hour buy zone, it's gonna buy up to the previous sell zone. And that's a lot of pips. Like GJ can go 100 pips in 5 minutes. Like I've seen it with my own eyes. So yeah, y'all. You could also be looking at again GJ for a buy, and you could set your TP anywhere from 30. Yeah, anywhere from 30 to 100 pips. Really, honestly, because it's gonna go from here all the way up here, and then it's gonna come back down eventually. But for now, the whole goal of this session is to go up. Is to go up. So, all right, I'm going to stop this recording so that I can transition to our next session. But if this was helpful, just drop some sevens in the chat. If you have any more questions, you can also drop those in the chat and I'll answer them right now as well. Yeah, those larger time frames are really helpful because it gives you a bigger picture and more confidence with your entry points on a smaller time frame. Like it's perfectly fine to take your entries on the 5 minute, but does it have confluence with the higher time frames? Like let's look at this really quickly on the 5 minute. And even on the 5 minute, look at that. That's even better. Like if you have entries like this doesn't always happen where this is our 4 hour support zone and the market tapped into our 4 hour support zone, it's definitely gonna buy. Like it's definitely gonna buy. Like that's perfectly fine to take it on the 5 minute. And let's just take a look back at Euro USD real quick. Okay, it's still playing in the zone, right? It's probably it has some space to go up to here. But once it takes out that price, it's definitely going to be headed on its way down. So even our 5 minute is adding up. We have our MOM crossing down. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be it might be a really one big long candle that actually come down and take out this low and that low, because that happens sometimes too, where one candle will take out previous sessions. Let me just show you guys one example really quick, then we really want to move on. This is that 100 pip candle right here. Let me see on a smaller time frame. Friday. Oh, here we go. So look at this, y'all. This was the candle that I dropped in the chat because this is the perfect example of I'm taking out all the previous highs. Like this one candle, this was a 5 minute candle, guys. And I was in this trade for a buy. And it was crazy because it took out all the previous highs. Like I knew it was going to take out this high, but it took out so many different session highs. Let me just zoom out. Do y'all see this? So when I say the liquidity trades are really awesome because they don't come to play. Like that one candle took out mad sessions. Like, and that's the type of moves you want to see. Like, but it's only comes with being consistent because it doesn't happen all the time, but it happens often enough. You just got to be in the market to trade it. So let me start recording this.